nice guy is classically the man that's become a chameleon to everyone. He's given away his power. He doesn't really know his full yes. He doesn't really know his full no. He's a I don't mind man. And those resentment coins build up in the resentment jar over years and years and years. And then one day that jar cracked. I was like, how high do you want me to jump? How far? What do you want me to do? Splitting myself in 4, 5, 6 ways, chasing money, alcohol, cocaine. And at 27 years old, I had a stroke, a TIA.
We're here with Alexander Cottle of the Unmasked Man. Nice to speak with you, Alex.
Nice to meet you, Jason, and to be here today. Thank you.
All right. Okay, good. I guess I'll start with the question. What really goes on at a men's retreat?
Goes on at a men's retreat. Many men's retreats are different. I can only speak from our offering at the Unmasked Man. I see an evolution and an expansion of men's work stepping up and coming forward. So you have an entry-level men's retreat, which could be something like men gathering together, doing a bit of breath work, sharing, doing some ice baths. And these are popping up more and more, and it gives an opportunity for men to share and to feel that they are not alone, to build brotherhood, to build connection. At our men's retreats, which I think kind of separates us from that kind of entry-level work, is if you want to really step into sovereignty work, deep shadow work being the parts of you that you want to expose, the parts that you've denied, suppressed, or deemed unacceptable to yourself or by society. There's a part in you that knows it wants to be a leader. It's sitting on suppressed anger. If you're a man suffering with deep grief, we deal with work that is incredibly powerful when we shift trauma into energy that can serve you rather than stop you living the life you want to live. So there's a big scope and a big variety of what can be achieved at a men's retreat. But sharing more about, in particular what we do, we take men from boy, our level 1, to king. So from boy psychology to man psychology, from moving from reaction to responding, and a growing in emotional maturity and healing deep childhood trauma.
Well, that sounds pretty healthy.
Yeah, it's revolutionary. It's life-changing. It's powerful to witness. And when a man unmasks and meets himself, he can finally stop being the nice guy, which is predominantly 99.9% of the men that I work with are nice guys. And they move into the category of recovering nice guy, where a nice guy is classically the man that's become a chameleon to everyone. He's given away his power. He's given away his needs. He doesn't really know his full yes. He doesn't really know his full no. He's a I don't mind man. And that I don't mind man, those resentment coins build up in the resentment jar over years and years and years. And then one day that jar cracks and he realizes that he's incredibly angry. He's incredibly sad underneath that anger. And also he doesn't know who he is truly, Jason, because he's never really considered that for a moment.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Being a nice guy isn't necessarily a negative thing, but when you explain it more fully, I guess that's what I think is important about this conversation is that everything you just said, once we allowed a little bit of a second to listen to it, sounds wider and more holistic and healthy. And if we just, glance over it from the outside through the lens of whatever stigmas or prejudices we have going into these kind of topics. So okay, great start. Let's switch to I'd like to dive back into those details a little bit later, but maybe just personally, how did you get started here? Like, what's your why?
In terms of serving men?
Yeah. How did you end up here?
So I was a chameleon man. I was a nice guy. I was being puppeteered by many different directors in my job. And I was like, how high do you want me to jump? How far? What do you want me to do? Splitting myself in 4, 5, 6 ways, chasing money, alcohol, cocaine, just not being a good man. And at 27 years old, I'm 38 now, at 27 years old, I had a stroke, a TIA in New York City. I was coming back from work. I was actually working out in LA for 2 weeks prior to arriving in New York. And then I was on my way back we had an office just off Fifth Avenue, and I was going to stay at the Hudson Hotel, and I felt this pain developing. down my left-hand side, and I got to my room, and that's where I lost all complete function of my left-hand side and had to call an ambulance, which was very difficult because I was like dragging myself across the bed like this wounded animal. And they took me to Mount Sinai Hospital, and that was really the start of everything, realizing that I was broken. I was not following my truth. I'd been lying to myself deeply, and it was incredibly dark, that period. I came back, I tried to take my own life. I self-medicated through alcohol, trying to still kind of manage my anxiety symptoms in the aftermath of that, and then heavily, not intoxicated, heavily medicated through citalopram, zopiclone, diazepam, these drugs that were kind of managing my nervous system that was completely shattered. And that led me to briefly kind of skip over it. It led me to a more spiritual inquiry into what was going on for me. Definitely a fractured soul, a fractured direction, a fractured dharma. Dharma means life purpose, a fractured man. And that led me to look for teachers all around the world. And I started to inquire in more of an Eastern way of thinking rather than a Western way of thinking. I started to look at things like Taoism and yoga and Advaita Vedanta and plant medicines and different holistic ways of healing, and learned from some of the best, sat with some of the best, was very fortunate to live and move out of the Western world for a long period and kind of spend a huge amount of time on healing. And then men's work found me in 2017, and I think from memory, with King Warrior Lover Magician, Robert Moore and Douglas Sheeley, who big founders of the mythopoetic men's movement in the 90s. This book landed on my desk, and I just knew that was me ready to lean into serving men and taking my wound and turning it into light.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm glad you came out of it in this way.
So am I.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. I mean, it's yeah, the path is difficult at moments, but I guess it must feel gratifying now to look back and see. I'm sure you worked hard on it, and you got here, and you seem pretty grounded and peaceful. So I'm happy for that for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Thank
yeah.
you.
So this journey of yours inspired you to help others
Mm-hmm.
going through similar things. Mm-hmm. Right. And what would you say? Would you say that the majority of men, like, what's the breakdown of people who are coming for this kind of work? Do they fit in similar demographics, or histories that you were coming from?
I think men arrive at this path inquiring into like a men's retreat or men's work in general. That's the general terminology, the header men's work, although it's not so well known, because they realize that there is a fracture inside of themselves, or they've become so lost that they need to inquire deeper and look under that rock that they've probably been terrified to look under for many years, losing themselves similarly to me in drugs, alcohol, trying to become someone their father wanted them to become, or their mother. The father wound is huge in men's work. So not really living the life they wanted or chose to live because they never really had sovereignty over themselves. Sometimes men come because the feminine have put it in front of them. Maybe they're in a relationship, the woman's rose up, she's gone on a journey of her own, and she's calling the man to rise alongside her. That happens a lot, actually. And some men, being really honest, they come as a last resort, and we obviously try not to do that. We share that we're here to help men grow. We're a men's wellness organization. We're not a crisis unit. But some men have walked through the door, not been fully honest, and then afterwards said, "You saved my life." And obviously, it's incredibly powerful to hear, but making sure they get the right support afterwards is vital. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what would you say biggest reluctance you face in these early stages when someone walks in? Uh, Maybe they haven't been, accustomed to this kind of work.
Yeah. Well, most of us in the Western world live through our minds, not our hearts. So that's the biggest barrier, first and foremost. So we have stories. The eyes are not just lenses, they're projectors. So we have stories that we overlay onto everything. We have judgments. So judgments are the biggest things that stop us from learning. from taking information in and from trusting ourselves. So if a man is arriving and he's probably incredibly intellectual. I work with a lot of men that are incredibly intellectual, but it's their intellect that's caused them a lot of pain and suffering because they're living from the head up. They disconnected from the body so many years ago, probably because of trauma. And I have deep compassion for that man because he realized the body wasn't safe. Maybe he was physically abused, sexually abused, or bullied, or didn't know how to navigate his own anger. So he suppressed it and he decided to live in the head. This is what we see generally in the male of today, very intellectual, very head driven. So we need to move him from his head into his body. We need to work and break down those judgments because those judgments have become a prison for him. And that is not a nice place to live. He deeply wants to free himself from that. He just doesn't know how often, or hasn't met the right mentor or guide yet. So the judgments from his own internal psyche, but also the judgments that he'd have inherited from society, being tough, men can't cry, man up. These have been passed down. If we go back the last 100 years, and you can go back even further, from our great grandfathers had to be at war. So when they're at war, was there any time for feeling an emotion? Of course there wasn't. So they had to bury their emotions 6 feet underground and get on with the job at hand. Now they brought up sons in the 60s, teaching them the same methodology. And that's been passed down for generations and generations. It's only in the 1990s when that started to get questioned with the mythopoetic men's movement. And then we're seeing a rise of masculinity in a different form, and understanding that actually it can be incredibly powerful, liberating, and necessary to be vulnerable. And that if we hold all this stuff by ourselves and try to do it alone, actually we end up caving in and not being there to help anyone. So breaking down the stigma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess vulnerability, or is that the thing that people hesitate most with? I mean, let's bring ourselves on the ground to a retreat. I'm sure you have exercises and interactions that maybe promote breaking down these barriers and vulnerability. I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing, like, what are some of the steps that you try to offer men as a way to help them get past those first steps?
I think calling out the shadow again, like calling out that you're going to have judgment. Who are you behind the judgment? Who are you behind the mask? If you relax into the body and you start to soften, you take your arms away, you start to open the body, you start to meet this man, and you start to realize that the man in front of you has suffered incredible pain, just like you. He's probably been bullied. He's probably been rejected. He's probably been abandoned. He's probably felt lost somewhere along the way. Like, you can suddenly open your heart with more compassion. I've worked with Royal Marine Commandos, ex-soldiers that are suffering from great PTSD. I've worked with bodybuilders. I've worked with the strongest physical men that look the toughest possible. And actually, they've been there deeply in their grief, in their anger, in their fear. And it epitomizes that if men like that can do it, any man can do it. It's not soft to be vulnerable. It's actually deeply, our slogan is vulnerability is courage. And these men that are pushing against it from these judgments are the very men that deep down probably need the work the most.
Yes, vulnerability is courage. It is. It is. It's something I've learned over the years. Yeah, and once you experience it's like being honest. When you have an urge to tell a lie and you choose honesty instead, or you have the urge to cover up and you choose being vulnerable instead. It's scary. It's scary at first to take the more difficult route, and then once you do, you feel the empowerment of choosing that higher road.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the first steps? Like maybe are there specific interactions or exercises that you do there? Like maybe give me some examples of what goes on the ground at a retreat.
We always start with a group sharing circle. And a group sharing circle, the power of just being in a group for 4 days is transformational, because let's say you struggle to access your grief, or you struggle to access the story as well to access your grief. Now, I guarantee that one man in that room of the 19, 18, 20 men that arrive on our retreats, they will share a similar story. It just always happens. So by them stepping in and being vulnerable, it gives you permission. not only is it a sharing circle, it's a shame-free circle. So it's a space where we bring forward our deepest, most vulnerable parts. And in that, we give permission for us to let go of shame, because shame is often the first barrier to actually touching the emotion. So the power of group work and group dynamics and men stepping forward into the circle. So they will literally step in to the middle of the circle in front of everyone and share a bit about their story and about why they are here and what they are struggling with. And suddenly this resonance, this group field resonance of, oh yeah, me too, me too, me too. Suddenly there's a healing just happening in that space just by sharing, you know. This isn't rocket science. The deeper transformational trauma work that we do, yeah, that's very technical. That's like brain surgery for the soul, the psyche, the mind, the body, right? But just this entry level stuff of just being in a room and being vulnerable, that still needs to be held well, because I've seen that held really badly as well. So just making sure that the facilitator is holding that with deep reverence, care, love, and truly listening.
Mm. So yeah, it seems so simple, but just being with other people, sitting and sharing. Yeah, I've been in a sharing circle, and it's anxiety inducing the first time you just open up to a group of people about your personal things. But just like anything, it becomes more and more comfortable the more you get exposure to it. Maybe sketch out a little bit more what happens on the ground there.
On the ground, we work with pranayama and breath work. The whole journey is about regulating the nervous system over 4 days. So really grounding them in their bodies. And then we follow different archetypes each day. So we move through the lover, we move through the warrior, we move through the magician, and we move through the king. So each day has a theme. The lover has play, connectivity. The warrior, the lover emotion is grief. The gateway emotion for the warrior is anger. So we look at different emotions each day: magician, fear, king, joy. And I can tell you so much, and at the same time I can't give away too much, because
No, I get it.
the emotional process work is kind of our own little unique interpretation of doing it.
Got it.
But essentially we'll do long workshops, sometimes 4, 5, 6 hours, on each man having an opportunity to come forward and work on an incredibly important piece of work in his life. So this could be someone that's tormented him, a caregiver, a bully. It could be himself, and he gets to face that part and liberate himself through that part. And it's his own hero's journey, essentially. This can only be done in the power of group work. It's where we contain deep rage and anger that man has probably never let out of his body in 30, 40 years, or touched deep grief and said goodbye to someone he really needed to say goodbye to. So this is more like you have to be there to know, to see, to experience. And it's what separates us deeply from the kind of entry level stuff of just sharing.
Right. No, yeah, but even if there was a brief window into it, I think it's important to, I mean, even just, you could say the word king as a goal, but just adding that the nuance behind it. I like that association you did. Joy was the entry feeling for king.
But for king, joy is the gateway emotion. Yeah.
Yeah, you see, so that is an interesting perspective, because, and maybe that's a good transition into like potential stigma, because the men's work, the men's health movement is increasing, and I've seen things online, someone posting of a little violin emoji, cry me a river for men who need to do work. Society kind of pushing back, and our society and our culture's been through a swing, and it's understandable where we go, but we often go this way, and we have these big pendulum swings. So I think it's good to shed a light that what's happening here has a healthier underpinning. And, it's not just telling men, you're a warrior or you're a king. It seems to be with a much healthier significance that allows them to like build a healthier root system behind these terms, That's what it seems like. And it's good to get a little glimpse under that. So thank you for that. I guess like, maybe we could talk a little bit about how people come out of this. It's you find them Like, what are the emotions do you see out of it? I mean, a relief, a burden? Has their ego been boosted in an ego-driven way, or are they grounded and relieved and unburdened? Like, what do you see there?
Do you mean coming off the back of a retreat?
Yeah.
Well, really, the retreat is something that you can come and experience, but it's really the first step in a long, long journey. I always say to men that this work is not for Christmas; it's for life. If you really want to transform this life of yours, it requires consistent dedication to men's work in general. Now, what is men's work? It's about integrity. It's about accountability. It's about being honest. It's about honoring your boundaries. It's about standing for something that fills you up and you can follow your purpose. And it's about honoring yourself as a sovereign being. Now, that is the life that you want to choose moving forward, then your life is dramatically going to change. If you go on our Trustpilot reviews, you'll see what men say: life changing, life changing, life changing, life changing. Or they'll say something like, this equates to 10 years of therapy in 4 days. This was the biggest, best amount of money I'd spent compared to all the other money I'd wasted on self-development work. Now, I agree with a lot of that, because when I found men's work, I realized that if it was done well and done at the right level, you can find the golden union of healing. So you can have the top-down psychological understanding, which a lot of people go after and they go and find that they're just discovering more knowledge, but they're missing a really important part, and that's the somatic bottom-up approach. And when you can link the two in a nice structure, which the archetypes give you, right? King, warrior, lover, magician, and give you a roadmap to understand yourself, mixed with a somatic, embodied, new imprint understanding of why you're here. That's a golden union of life-changing transformation that can last if you stick to it and if you continue the work, which is why we don't just have a level 1, we have a level 2, we have other development programs and plans, we have a facilitator training, and we have shadow sessions, which enables the community to continue this work further down the line, along with online stuff. So this is a change of lifestyle. If you just want a peak experience, then this probably isn't for you, although it could open the door to inquiry of something deeper. But the men who truly transform are the men that stay consistent to the path. It's a bit like starting the gym in January and then kind of flailing off. It's like, that's not how you're going to change your body, right? It's the little incremental times you've shown up over that year, the accountability, the consistency. So how does it leave men? Yeah, life changed, transformed. Even if they come for 4 days, it still changes their life. It does. You can see it. Their shoulders are back, their head is forward, their heart is shining bright. It's a dramatic imprinting of their nervous system, because you cannot, the amount of energy they dispel out their body over those 4 days, which is during these emotional processes that we hold, which are very unique and very special. You can't let out 30 years of anger and not change. So you've got all that space in your system and your nervous system now to welcome a new energy, a new path, a new way in.